welcome to the May press meeting, our program. Our guest speaker this evening is Morey Wolfson, and he'll be speaking about carbon capture. CCUS is a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We are a statewide organization. This meeting this evening is brought to you by the Denver chapter. And we are seeking a carbon neutral Colorado powered by 100% renewable energy. Our goal is to transition Colorado to a new energy economy that is 100% renewable through education, engagement, and creating networking opportunities across all Denver communities. And that's something I'd like to stress. So many of our meetings have been since COVID online, which is a great way to transmit information. We were still able to provide excellent education and materials and so on to help with this transition. But another component to that is the actual networking and community building that is required. And that's why we're hosting this as a hybrid event, both online for those that cannot make it and in person for those who can meet and community build. You know, the thinking is there could be entrepreneurs in the audience. There could be people seeking jobs. There could be people that want to transition their own homes. And this is a chance for people to meet and to network and make connections. At this point in the state of technology, we don't really have a means for doing this online. Until such time, such a day arrives, we are left to the in-person stuff. So we encourage anyone who can make it to come, because that is a part of this process. We value renewables, emerging technologies, efficiency, diversity, and inclusion, and of course, community. I'll also like to draw attention to some of the sponsors that help make CCUS possible. A few of these are put up on the screen here. We've got Vista, Solaris Energy, Platte River Power Authority, Sinton Instruments, Kelly Government Solutions. Moving on, ARS Solar and Renewable, Branch Architecture Studios, Sandbox Solar, and so on, and COSA. They help make these types of meetings possible. Our speaker for next month is David Millis from our very own CCUS. And he'll be talking about his personal experience plus research of transitioning his own home to electrifying his own home. He installed a solar pump. He's been through one winter, not a solar pump, a heat pump. He's been through one winter with his heat pump. So he'll be describing that experience. Plus he's had solar panels for a while. And actually his transportation is electrified. He rides a bike everywhere, electric bike everywhere. So he'll be sharing his experience next month. And I will now turn the screen over to Morey. The show is now his.
Hey, everybody. Hi, good morning. I'm glad you're here. And, very much appreciate the invitation to be here. Your name's Greg, right? Sure. You guys know Greg from previous meetings. He's the facilitator. So I want to thank you for the invitation. Yeah, so this is my topic is it's really not directly connected to renewable energy, but it's all part of that kind of ecosystem of energy choices, environmental choices. I've got a lot of slides. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, and I hope it's okay with you that if you've got questions, I prefer that you wait until my presentation's over, because I have this feeling that typically people ask questions about things and then they find out that I addressed it later on. So kind of move forward. As I understand, I'm going to be able to give a talk for about 1 hour, and then we're going to have a full hour for those that want to really get involved in dialogue about this. And then we'll adjourn. So these are the things I'm going to be talking about. The baseline is the climate crisis. I'm going to go into what is the carbon capture technology, what is the politics, the economics, the environmental impacts, so it's pretty comprehensive actually, but it's a big topic. So I really try to get the best that I can. Here's my introduction, is that, just a little bit about myself, just a couple of slides. I'm from Denver, and I worked for many years at the Public Utilities Commission, which many of you know, they regulate the electric power industry and natural gas. Yeah. So I worked there for 15 years, sort of 15 different commissioners as the executive assistant, doing a lot of the policy work at the PUC. Then I moved over to the Renewable Energy Lab. I worked out there for about 4 or 5 years, working on utilities issues there. And then I worked for Governor Witter for 4 years as his chief energy policy advisor. I did a lot of work at the State House and PUC, and wrote a lot of white papers that became the official positions of the government. Then we'll do that, and John Hickenlooper was elected. I asked me to stay on again until I decided to retire and move out to California to be with my oldest son. So I moved out to California. I was out in Pasadena for about 10 years, working primarily on water issues out there. But for those of you who know about Pasadena, it's a pretty exciting place. And I was hanging out with my people, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Caltech. So I was hanging around with like the really top climate scientists. They're all part of that circle. And that means that circle. That's where I learned a lot that you'll be learning, that you'll be learning this evening. I moved back to Colorado about 2 years ago. I live out in Lakewood. So what I'm going to be discussing is the full continuum. Wish there was a way that this thing didn't have that stripe across. You can't do anything about that. That's probably embedded.
Actually, I think
If there's a way,
I think there is.
oh, that'd be good. You could do that because it's gonna block quite a few slides.
Yeah, we don't want that. Right?
Okay, thanks. Now, is it
The top. Top, you just hit okay.
Yeah.
The bill is still covering.
It's.
Yeah, maybe a little more. Brian needs to stop joining the clinic. His already dropping.
I don't know how to clear that.
Try them, yeah, try that. There you go, hide video panel. Right there. Hide floating meeting controls.
The
The other one, yeah, one more in there. Leading.
Where is it?
More, 3 more, 2 more down. There you go. There we go.
Hey, we do. Thank you all. I never would have been able to do that myself. Oh, it's great. Okay, now it's, so, yeah, it's basically divided into three parts. There's the capturing of the carbon, whether at a point source or from the atmosphere. Then you gotta put it into a pipeline, and you're gonna do 2 things with it. We're gonna either store it, sequestration, keep underground for hopefully, centuries or millennia, or you're gonna utilize it. And so that's what I'll be talking about. Spend some time on each one. Each section of this is going to be discussed. And so. So this is the CRES meeting, and I want you to know that CRES has developed an 8-page position statement on carbon management. And if you go to the CRES website, there's a thing you can click called policy, and under policy, you can then read the carbon management. And it's I had a hand in that, but other people did as well who are on the policy committee with myself at CRES. And so I would encourage, for those of you who really want to get more informed of the details of what's going on with carbon management writ large, that is a place to go. So I've highlighted a few things here for you just to see kind of where we at CRES are saying. I think it's about the climate crisis first and foremost. And so because of the urgency that is required to do something about that, the whole mindset is let's not get distracted, shall we? Not get distracted when we have only so many months, years to get this job done. That's why we're interested in carbon management. Yeah, our real goal is we want to move around. But as a side goal, it's like, wait, is this thing getting in the way of the push for renewable energy? It could. Let's back up, but this is the key. It's climate change. I mean, that is the existential crisis. And if we take that seriously, then we have to be able to distinguish between real solutions and false solutions, because we don't have the time to be finding out that this was a false solution all along, and it was on me to figure it out, but I didn't. But now that I know, I've lost 3 years, 5 years of chasing after something which turned out to be a bust. And that's where carbon capture. It's not a bust now, it's like all aflame with money and interest and everything, but it's gonna go down. And so you may have read this, like about a week ago, the news came out, I mean, it just passed the by, but the news came out is that the amount of carbon in the past year grew by 4 points, 4 ppm. It's been historically growing at 2.5. But a lot of this has to do with when the economy improves the right way, if they're using more oil to be able to make the economy grow. And now it's at 426 parts per million. So how many times have you heard all that stuff that you just saw up there? All of the above, everything on the table. These are what I call memes. You know, they're things that kind of comfort us to say, well, you know, I'm open-minded and have everything on the table, and who are we to guess what's right or wrong, and maybe we should be technology agnostic, and all of these kind of things which are fine if you're not in the middle of a crisis, you know, and everything is just fine. There is no climate crisis. Just take your time, work it through, or let's really start to push for the right thing. And so what people don't know about, most people know very little about carbon capture, because why should they? I mean, really, in practical terms, it's not something, unless you're involved in the industry itself, or you're involved in policy, why would somebody like spend a lot of time just like trying to learn so much as they can about carbon capture? It just doesn't happen. But once they do, then stuff starts to like, oh, okay, wow. Did not know this. I did not know that. Parasitic power. I don't even know what that means. What it means is that you've got an electric power plant and you put a carbon capture, piece of carbon capture in there, and you're like, that's going to be required to run that carbon capture. That's called parasitic power. Okay, get it? You know, it's a plant that would be putting out 100 units of energy is now only putting out 70. Because 30 of the units are to run this thing to be able to stop the carbon from coming out the stack. And there's more carbon coming out the stack now than there was before you bolted it in. This is just how like sort of topsy-turvy this thing is. And it's like you'll see through this presentation. Don't believe me. I'm the messenger. Don't count me. You'll see that there are far brighter, smarter, higher level people than myself out there who are talking about what I'm talking about in a far more articulate and convincing way. So let's start with the scale and the cost. And we're only talking about right here the scale and cost of that end of the topic, the carbon capture and the carbon the direct air capture. So, again, I go back to this thing is like, most people say, oh, well, shouldn't everything be on the table? I mean, let's have an open mind. Let's be optimistic. Can we? We have a lot of options here. Carbon capture is not a silver bullet, but if it's going to be anything that can help us with this climate crisis, we should do this. These are nice, comfortable things that we can have, and people can feel okay about that. Well, we're the ones that put it up there. Don't you think we have a responsibility to be the ones that bring it down? You've heard this before, or maybe you thought this before. It's an easy thing to say and to think. There's nothing that illegitimate about that kind of thinking. Until you find out the reality, and then you won't find yourself saying that, and because you realize that makes no sense. Okay. Well, we pay taxes for all kinds of things. Why are you talking about this big problem with all this money going to this thing? We pay taxes for this, and I don't mind paying taxes, so all the better. Well, okay. So just because you're not anti-tax, when you go into something like this, then you follow the money. So all of these things sound right, and you're supposed to say, yeah, we should do all of this, but then you find out the facts. And so that's my presentation tonight, is to keep some facts. So this guy's saying, yeah, I care about climate change deeply. Don't question the depth of my concern about climate change. Who are you to judge me about it? That you should be more concerned about climate change. But what does he know? What does that person actually know? If you sat him down and you gave him like a carbon capture IQ test, and then you find out, well, he didn't really know. So, having been out in California, working with these people at Caltech, these people do know. And they've set me down as a person that didn't know. And now I learned. And so I've been on a bit of a mission the past 3 or 4 years now. Basically talk primarily to environmentalists to try to get them to get their heads straight about this particular topic. So unfortunately, my streak is being, these slides are being kind of cut off, but the headline reads, have we reached peak greenwashing yet? Because so much of this is greenwashing. And it's put out there to, kind of like what the tobacco industry did about 20 years ago. They have physicians in front of congressional things telling you that cancer is good for you. That's what we are today. It's almost a direct analogy to the oil and gas industry, where what they're doing today is greenwashing. And a lot of people buy into it, and they've got a lot of money. They get a huge return on investment to get the public to think that the oil companies are actually in favor of doing something about the climate crisis, and they point directly to carbon capture as being why, as proof positive that they are doing something about the climate crisis. And if you put that on TV, 60-70% of the population, that's where they're gonna get, they're gonna believe it. So, and behind it, there's a lot of billionaires. Okay, like who's behind all of this? The billionaires. Is it because they really care for their grandkids, or do they really care about their image? So, I don't know if any or many of you had seen the recent release that said the largest direct air capture machine in the world is just opened up in Iceland. And it's like coming in headlines, exclamation point, celebrate. And then, but when you get through the article, it starts to say well, although, you know, if this is exciting. There's a kind of smaller trend. Well, it's only producing so much effectiveness that actually getting the job done. So, but it's almost like obligatory that they have to sort of tell you the truth. Because what they really want to do is to get your eyeballs on the article. So that, and then you're thinking, wow, you see, we are making progress. This is, you know, look what they just did nicely. Well, you know, I'm not a math guy, but I worked all my life, all my career with a lot of numbers, and I know how to crunch numbers pretty well. And it doesn't take a genius to know how to do these numbers. In fact, I think maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade math is what I'm talking about. Nothing serious. Basically, they say in this slide that we can get this to, eventually we can get it to $100 a ton. Well, no, I mean, if you don't know how to put $100 a ton into any kind of context, it just rolls right by. It's like, okay, that's just like some random number. Once you start to integrate, what does $100 a ton mean? So getting back to kind of where the big picture is on carbon capture and storage, is that we're talking carbon capture here, and there's these two things. One is taking it out of the stacks, that's called carbon capture. And carbon removal is something else. Carbon removal is really used for the atmospheric, where you're removing from the atmosphere. And that's the thing that's sort of the poster child for people getting excited and like, wow, we could actually solve this thing. So we're just talking about those two things now. So in the stacks, the flue gas at the power plant, petrochemical plant, cement plants, etc., there's a stack that's going up into the air, and it's to disperse the pollution from the plant, and that comes from this carbon. And so that's where it is. It's also in nature. And, you know, carbon is attached to the land. Just think of the world. It's like a big carbon machine. It's a big carbon section that's going on. And so it's all over the land. And it's in all those forests and agriculture and livestock and everything else. But the place where it's doing all the damage is in the atmosphere, because that's heating up the planet. They call it global warming. That sounds right. It's really global heating. It's not global warming. It's not climate change. Yeah, it's global heat. It's going on, and we're acting as if like, well, it is what it is. Well, yeah, it is what it is. And so, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to chase after false solutions? Are we going to chase after the real meaning? So, inside the flue stacks, you've got ethanol, coal-fired power plants, gas-fired plants, combined cycle plants. And so there's a different fraction of carbon dioxide coming out of each one of these flues. So out of an ethanol plant, you almost get a pure stream, because it's a fermentation process. It's like stuff in beer. It's just perfect. Carbon dioxide makes the biggest. So if you're gonna collect carbon from a flue, you want to take it right out of an ethanol plant. That's the target. That's really where the stuff is. More on that later. Coal plant, it's not pure stream, it's maybe 12-15% that's coming out as this carbon dioxide. Well, that's a fair amount of stuff. It's like, well, gee, we don't want it to go to the atmosphere. We want to be able to like capture that. Okay. So yeah, that's going to be easier than the next one down, which is a natural gas plant, because there's less carbon dioxide. So the opportunity is higher for an ethanol plant and a coal plant, and then the opportunity is less for a gas plant. But what are people are talking about 0.042% for capturing it out of the air. And when we're not even capturing it out of, when we have a higher opportunity, then you have to follow the money. Who's doing this? And who's swallowing that? So your car, that typical American car is putting out about 5 tons a year of carbon dioxide, and that's relevant. But when you look at all the millions of cars out there and then people that are driving those cars, if you were to ask any one of them how many tons of carbon is coming out of your car, they would say, I don't know. Virtually every, other than some kind of atmospheric scientist or chemist or something. Even the CEO, if I asked the CEO of GM, can you tell me how many tons of carbon come out of your Corvette? The CEO would, she doesn't have to say, well, I guess that you'd have to talk about engineers. Okay, so there's no inherent consciousness that's going on that, but knowing there's 5 tons that's coming out of here out of a car, then it starts to put these other tons that we're talking about into some perspective, and that's what I'm showing you here. This little machine out here in Iceland, you probably, I want to see you raise your hand. How many people have heard about this thing in Iceland or have seen that picture? Okay.
I visited.
Did you?
Yeah, we drove past it.
Oh,
That's the injection wells, that's not even the facility.
yeah, those are pipes and everything. We'll have to talk, I'm looking forward to chatting with you about that. Now, this was called the Orca. And it was until just recently the largest in the world, largest direct air capture machine, 5,000 tons a year. 4,000 tons a year. That's equal to 800 cars. That was the largest. Now, well, maybe I'll ask you now, who paid for that?
I think Microsoft and maybe a couple other tech firms that are trying to offset.
Yep.
Exactly, right.
What they're doing is it's guilt payment. It's like PR thing where they are paying them $1,000 a ton, so that they can put up ads on Super Bowl games or whatever to be able to say, look at this. And then they can get people saying that I'm now optimistic. I mean, we can do whatever we want. We can take that trip on that airplane because there's this really cool thing that Microsoft told us about that they're spending money on Iceland. But it's like always compared to what? Look what's happening in Wyoming. This is really amazing. They're so smart in Wyoming that the legislature there decided, what we're going to do is we have to save these coal jobs, and so we're going to require the utility to put carbon capture on these coal-fired power plants to keep them running, because we know that Biden is going to crack down on all this pollution. So we're going to force these power plants in Wyoming to snap on carbon capture machine. Well, guess what? This is how much it's going to cost every customer for the wonders of carbon capture in Wyoming. You're going to pay $20 a month, $22, $25 more a month. And this isn't some environmentalist that just crunched his numbers. These are the utilities that came in front of the regulators and say, well, it's the law. If you want us to do it, I guess we have no choice, but we're going to have everybody pay $25 more than that. Well, then they sell it to the good old boys by basically saying, well, this is vital to our economy in Wyoming. And if we don't do something like this, well, then we won't have these jobs. And so, gee, maybe $25 to keep our whole industry happy here in Wyoming. Maybe this way. Don't complain about it. I already mentioned parasitic power, but basically the thing to know about carbon dioxide, it is the ultimate waste product. It has no real value. And that's why they just throw that into the atmosphere. The only place where it has any value is I'll show you in a little bit under utilization. It has some value, but basically it's the ultimate waste product. It's like, you have to pay somebody to pick up your trash, waste management. They probably, or somebody's going to come out and pick up your trash. But are we gonna have to pay someone to pick up our carbon dioxide? Well, that's what these carbon capture people think.
You skip the slide.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I hope to be able to get back to that.
There you go.
Did I? Yeah, I skipped forward. See, I use the mouse before. I'm just gonna get my mouse out. I think this should solve it. Because. It is, so this, see if it works. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Paris City Power, yeah, it's a wastewater. So for everybody else, it's a wastewater, but for the profit center, because for the oil industry, because they have arranged things politically to be able to get paid for every ton that they take out. And so we're basically being scammed by the oil industry, and some people have figured this thing out. A lot of people have not. I did some really fun calculations because I am so deep into this thing, but there's always been this missing piece. And this missing piece, it gets a little detailed, but here it's basically how much would how much would a carbon capture developer have to pay in their electric bills to pay for the power that's operating their plant? Well, these slides will be available, so if you ever want to spend more time with this, but it's essentially their lowest cost would be $140,000 a year. Yeah, or $800,000 if they're using a more expensive form of carbon capture. If it was Oregon, and of course they're using geothermal, which is cheap dirt, but if they're in the United States, that's part of the reason that they're in Iceland is because the fuel cost for geothermal is like nonsense.
Yeah, the subsurface where they're putting it is.
Yeah, it's they've got the perfect geologic formation underneath to be able to sequester it. Yeah. Anyway, there's but the point of this is that okay, that's their big electric bill. So are they paying for their own electric bill? Oh no, everybody in this room and every taxpayer is paying their electric bill. Because the whole enterprise is being subsidized. Okay, so we're the ones that have to pay. They don't have to worry about that. This I just did it today. There was a moment when I was actually sitting across the table from a climate scientist, and we were just sitting there talking about climate change just in California. And he said to himself, I wonder how much does 1 part per million carbon dioxide weigh? I think he's looking at me, like anybody else. How am I supposed to get about that? Hey, Siri, how much is 1 part per million carbon dioxide weigh? The answer's right there. That's interesting. So it weighs 8 billion tons. This is almost the heart of my presentation. If you don't remember anything else, this is the one to get into your head. We're at 426 parts per million. Each one of those parts per million is increasing the temperature, making matters worse. We're growing at 4 ppm. So how much is 1 ppm weigh? Well, $8 billion, 8 billion tons. I'm looking at him and I said, well, that's interesting, but what does that mean? He says, well, let's just multiply. Now there's where the 8th grader comes in. Johnny, can you multiply 8 billion times $100? I can. So what would that be? $800 billion. Oh, okay. So now we're at 426 parts per million. We're gonna move it down to 425 now. To direct air capture, or at $100 a ton. That's gotta cost $800 billion. But Daddy, isn't the Defense Department $800 billion? Wasn't Ukraine payment $60 billion? we're talking $800 billion for one. Oh, it's okay, kid, we've got a climate crisis, we have to spend with everything. You see where I'm going with that? That's the revelation. That is the revelation. $800 billion to move 1 part per million. And they're not gonna put that, now are they? And I mean I mean anybody other than people like me or environmentalists. They're the only ones that are put that kind of fiction up because, so. Now, why $100 a ton? This gets into the detail, but there's a huge spectrum of cost of carbon capture, and it's a big topic. And it ranges all the way from $30 up to $1,000 a ton. $100 a ton, a lot of people give me grief for saying, why are you using $100 a ton? You know it's 10 times more than. I say, well, I'm using it because I want that 8th grader to understand how to multiply $100 times 8 billion. Well, you're misleading people. You're understating the cost of this thing. I said, well, that's part of the point too. I want people to understand I'm not conflating the cost of this thing. I'm going low, way low at $100 a ton. So let's say it was actually 1,000. It wouldn't be 800 billion now, would it? It would be $8 trillion now, wouldn't it? This is how whacked out this topic is from the financial perspective. Then I was in an engineering class and I was giving a lecture there at CU, and this professor was there in the audience and he heard this was rap about $800 billion. $100 a ton. He said, no, look, we've been able to cut the cost down for so many things, solar, batteries, iPhones, everything else. We should, if we went down, let's say it wasn't $100 billion, it was $100 a ton. Let's say it was $10 a ton. I said, boom, deal, let's go, $10. Oh, so now we're down to $8 billion, only $8 billion to move the 1 part per million, and we're growing it forward. And so, but you see, what the mindset is like, I want to be positive, I want to be optimistic. I want all these students in this class not to go out of here thinking that it's all doom and gloom. Well, it's not, it should be all doom and gloom when it comes to direct air capture and carbon capture. Absolutely. So there's a math. I just talked you through it. 8 billion tons times $100, $800 billion. You can compare that to whatever you want. State of Colorado budget is $40 billion. So we're going to spend 20 times more to move 1 part per million than the state budget. Look what we've accomplished. We've moved it from 426 down to 425. Of course, in the scheme of global climate change, that thing coming down one little point like that, that's not going to help hardly at all. And we're going for a year. So it just makes no sense.
I was thinking maybe it would be helpful for people to understand what the pre-industrial PPM was.
Yeah.
And how much we've added.
Yeah, that was on a slide that I guess I didn't use.
No, you showed it. It was like 280.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was 280. So that was actually in the presentation. Sorry, Dave, it was in the presentation.
What was the world's population then?
Very low. Yeah, and
That's the problem.
that's part of the point. It's the
That's the problem.
It's the humans that had to enter into what was the carbon cycle that was operating just fine without our intervention. So yeah, thanks, Dave. There was 280. And there was about 350 about 30 years ago. And then that's when James Hansen got in front of the US Senate and said, we've got a crisis. And if we go back past 350, you guys just got to get better than for. So I'm going to go back here and find where I was. Now I'm going to move over to the pipeline side. So did my carbon capture, carbon dioxide removal, then now we're moving into the pipeline. The pipeline problem is far less of an economic problem as is the carbon capture. If you segment the carbon capture and the pipeline and the sequestration, by far and away, the most expensive part is the carbon capture itself. It's not the pipeline, although the pipelines have serious issues, but it's mainly safety issues. And because when you pressurize carbon dioxide, it has to be put up to something like 1,600 PSI. And it's really, you have to almost be these like stainless steel pipes instead of like some kind of cast iron thing or something. And because if they break, it's not like, oh, there's a spill and it's nasty, we have to get the cleanup crew out here. No, if there's any livestock or humans out there, they're gonna die. I mean, carbon dioxide, you know what carbon monoxide does to you in the garage. You can imagine what happened when carbon dioxide comes off. And it has, and I'll tell you about that. Stands for that. Okay. Now, this is utilization. What is carbon dioxide being used for? Well, this is a bit of an old slide, but it's pretty much real. The bulk of it is for this, enhanced oil recovery, which I'm going to get to, because that also is the heart of the issue, is enhanced oil recovery. You could use it for some good things, like, hey, look at that great computer that just happened. They injected carbon dioxide. That wasn't like just there as a part of the process. They inject, and so there's a lot of things that it's being used for. But these things are all pretty finite and small. This thing here is where we're going to go in the discussion. This is the other takeaway. Their first takeaway was what? $800 billion for one truck from the region. Got it. Next one. Enhanced oil recovery is the heart of the issue. So what you do is you have to pressurize it to a very high pressure and become what is called supercritical. Instead of it being a gaseous form, like when natural gas is going through the pipes to our house, it's in a gaseous form. This stuff is in a supercritical. It's in a sort of almost like a liquid type state. It is then piped to either a saline formation like down, or some kind of volcanic rock or something to be able to sequester it. But that's minor. There's very little of that in the middle that's actually going on. Okay, most of the piping of carbon dioxide, which we're talking about, is being used to be able to pressurize oil that's in the ground to bring more oil out. That's called enhanced oil recovery. That's the other takeaway. So there's two takeaways: 800 ppm, $800 billion, and now enhanced oil recovery. So somebody regulates this. It's the United States Department of Transportation's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. So they have nationwide responsibility over this topic of carbon dioxide pipelines. And that's all based upon the federal EPA Safe Drinking Water Act, so that carbon dioxide doesn't get into our water supplies and then cause the problems there. As I mentioned, it is an asphyxiant, heavier than air, and it can travel large distances. And so I've seen movies that have been put out by the Department of Transportation when they do a test where they deliver puncture a CO2 pipeline, and you can see what the results are. And it's really destructive, and it just spreads right over the province. Okay, so there's a little bit of like that. Here's like a picture. There have been two fairly recent explosions of carbon dioxide pipelines. One was down in Secaucus, Mississippi. Can I see you raise the hands, people who heard about that or know about that? You have? Okay. It's an African American community, very poor little area down in Mississippi. And there was like some kind of problem and the pipeline broke. They tried to bring the ambulances out. The ambulances wouldn't run because the spark plugs weren't operating. 45 people had to go to the hospital. There's been a lot of problems with them. And That was a company called Denverite. Denverite company was just purchased about 6 months ago by Exxon. That's Exxon, I'm talking about it. A lot of the carbon dioxide has been going into this enhanced oil recovery over the years, and it's been coming out of like natural geologic formations where just happen to have these little domes of carbon dioxide in Colorado. And then they put that in the pipeline, a company called Kinder Morgan, that sends it down to the Permian Basin in Texas. And they flush out more oil using it. So they've been doing that for 50 years. But they've had to pay Kinder Morgan $35 a ton. Well, this time, you'll see, they don't have to pay Kinder Morgan anymore because they're going to be able to get it from, from that side. And that'll be paid for by the taxpayers. Now, a lot of people in the Midwest are getting very upset about this because their property resort farmers. And they know about it. If you go to a crowd in Iowa, and you say, how many people have heard about Sacharsha, Mississippi? 90% of the audience raises their hands because this is coming to their land. And so there's a real movement, and this is more Republican people than Democrats.
Aren't they corn farmers too? That
Corn farmers,
sell the corn to make ethanol.
yes.
It's a co-op that they get money from. It's very,
Yes,
it's not dynamic like a
Yeah.
traditional, this is my land and I have no benefit, right? So it's very strange. That
yeah,
it's,
it's funny because everybody's got somebody who has a brother-in-law, somebody that works at Capital Plant. And then they could get the politicians who are saying, do you really care about our economy? If so, then you should be supportive of this stuff.
so they're co-ops, a lot of them are co-op,
Yeah.
farmers own the ethanol plant.
Yeah. So, this is what happens when you have a carbon dioxide leak. But, I won't spend a lot of that. Sequestration, there's basically, two approaches to that, like I mentioned. One is you actually put it into the ground with the purpose of it staying there for centuries. The other one is like, oh, why should we just put something that has value? Why don't we use that to make things like we could use the carbon to make something like this. Let's be positive here. Or better yet, why don't we just put it into our oil wells, and we'll be able to have decades more of oil to be able to sell to people who really don't want to switch to electric vehicles. So you basically got this situation. This is the law of how the permitting of the injection works. It's complicated, but it's essentially there's mainly federal stuff. So the EPA comes in, the EPA comes in because that's all based on the US Safe Drinking Water Act. It probably goes back to 75 or something like that. And so their responsibility across the country, except for those states that have decided that they want to have what they call primacy. The primacy means we could do things just as well as you, EPA, even better, if we can't have it be less than EPA's standards. So we're going to see primacy here in Texas or Louisiana or North Dakota or West Virginia or Wyoming or Colorado. Well, excuse me, why do you want to have primacy over the EPA in Colorado? Well, you got to understand, Mr. Wolfson, these people are not going to have a they're going to be coming to Colorado. We in Colorado know things better than EPA. Oh, do you really? You're putting this in the hands of the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission. The guys that, they know oil and gas. But the EPA knows injection. So what this slide shows is that there's 6 different categories of classification of wells in this country. Class 2 is really what's being used across the country, like 500,000 oil wells, gas wells. It's called class 2. Class 6 wells are what we're talking about for sequestration of carbon dioxide. Now they're far more stringent casings. Everything about that has to be far more bulletproof than for oil. So this is funny. Oh, so wow, you tell me there's only 3 class well in the United States of America? I mean, carbon dioxide is such a great thing. Well, we never had the policy for it. Well, that's an ADM plant in Decatur, Illinois, the three of them. And they're right there on the site. So they didn't even have to do a pipeline. Keep in mind, there's only 3 of these in this country. 3, maybe 50,000, I don't know, 150,000, 500,000, 11,000, there's 3 of these. So now we're gonna get you in the answer of which is what it's really about. I mentioned the fizz in your pot, the fizz in your beer, and how to package up some food to make sure it's preserved. So EOR, that's just what they call the holy grail for the oil industry. Because when you drill a well, you only get so much out. Get maybe 30% out. The other 30% is sitting there and say, you say, okay, well, you have 30%, and you try to flush that out with like water. I don't know. But after you do that, there's still some left down there, about 30. Why don't we just put carbon dioxide in it and extend our life for decades? This is the real thing that's going on. And what's going to happen when we have more decades of oil and gas? That's going to go to the cars, and we're going to continue with this climate change thing. So this is enhanced oil recovery, can get 15 to 20%. So if there's a better way of describing it, if you want to just get it, I should have looked at the slide and talking about it. But basically, energy in, energy out, carbon in, carbon. Carbon goes in enhanced oil recovery, more carbon goes out than energy than the carbon you just put in. This is after you've already wasted all this money to be able to capture it in the first place. It's all coming back to politics. You knew it was coming. Because this stuff does not stand on its own, on any level, as a free market competitive thing. This is all government greenwashing. So there's this thing called the 45Q. The 45Q has been around for a long time, and it's the way when the oil companies want to go and get their money at the U.S. Treasury, they are pointing to the 45Q and show their receipts of how many tons of carbon they've done, and then get rewarded through tax dollars for every carbon they capture. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, they just moved everything up to make it more profitable for the oil companies to go up into Washington, D.C., U.S. Treasury Department, and take the money. This is too complicated. I had to make this slide, but essentially I showed you there's 2 ways of doing stuff. You can either sequester it and you get paid a lot, or you put it into an enhanced oil recovery and you still get paid a lot, but not as much. But the decarbon comes right back out. Well, how much is actually calcified in the oil thing? Well, a lot, but not all of it. So this is the fun part of the presentation. Like, who is for this? Well, the oil companies and the politicians, almost to a person. As if you call yourself a politician, very likely you're in favor of this. And there's obvious reasons why. It's called campaign contributions. And the people that I'm talking to here, this is my main audience. I don't go talk to the oil companies. That's wasting their time. They would not want to hear one bit what I had to say. But genuinely interested, good-hearted, smart environmentalists in particular need to know this. And that's my mission, is to talk to environmentalists, not to talk to climate deniers. So these are the people who are for it. This guy used to be the head of the Department of Energy. His name is, her name on me is locked out at the top. But this guy went to MIT, he became the head of the Department of Energy. Whatever is weird, he's for it. If you want nuclear power, he's there. You want carbon capture, he's there. Anything, hydrogen, you got it. And so this is what he's up to. This is the guy from, who's the CEO of, Exxon, Karen Woods. And, he basically said that people are wrong, like people like me, we're wrong. That this is not an illusion. In fact, this whole thing is very, very probable. And so he's for it. And he'll let you know that on the Super Bowl, ad. You know, but a nice little African American girl, maybe blowing, you know, some with some flowers to show how much Exxon cares about the environment. I mean, it's just like greenwashing that's on steroids. So he's for it, and he calls it the Holy Grail. And he even goes so far as to say the project is the only realistic way. Check those words. This is the only realistic way to achieve the quick, aggressive cuts needed to reach the administration's emissions goals. I mean, how Orwellian can you get? This is not quick, this is not cheap, and it's not going to do anything to move that needle. But, you know, he's going to get some great PR benefit out of this. As is like Microsoft and Stripe and these other people are saying, oh, look at us, we're behind this. Occidental Petroleum is probably the biggest of them all, of the oil companies that are pushing this. And this is the lady who's the CEO of Occidental Oil. Until 2 years ago, Occidental Oil was the largest oil company in the state of Colorado, just to give you some perspective. So she basically says, hey, I think there's a way to continue the production of oil and gas for the foreseeable future. We can continue to produce what people are doing. This is an actual photograph of the construction of the direct air capture machine. Jobs in the economy. You ask that guy, how much is 1 part per million weigh? He said, get out of my face. I don't want to know. I don't need to. All I know, I'm getting paid $30 an hour. So, jobs in the economy. Those are what politicians must say in order for them to be able to keep their job. And you know, when you're outside of government or you're outside of industry and you get retired, you can start to think about things and not have to be worried that you're saying something the boss doesn't like. Then you start to get some clarity. This is the happy talk. It's not going to be just one small little workout machine in Iceland. It's going to be these. So, but the realists need to put a price tag on this. And who's paying for it? The oil companies. So unfortunately, here in Colorado, we've got our governor going out to a direct air capture machine in Brighton, Colorado. And Nancy Pelosi flies in to TIA to join in the celebration, the opening of this direct air capture machine back in April. Well, what questions did he have? First of all, you know, I worked for 2 governors, and I tell you, if I was working for one of those governors and they were proposing, hey, governor, you just got an invitation for a ribbon cutting out at a direct air capture machine, I would have been rushing in there and saying, don't be bamboozled, fools. You don't want to find yourself in a photograph at a direct air capture machine. But we've got the kind of like get along bureaucrats that feel like, well, he's all about jobs in the economy. So I can't go in there and advise him, don't go there because this thing makes no sense. There was a reporter there who said, I've got a couple of questions for you, for the people that are opening this up. How big is your electric bill? And your natural gas bill? Sorry. Can't answer that question. Oh, what? You don't know? No, it's sort of confidential because if we were to let you know, we lose our business advantage or competitive position. Oh, okay. So you can't tell me how much electricity and gas you're using. I got one more question for you, says the reporter. What are you doing with the carbon that you're capturing? Oh, we're releasing it into the atmosphere. Well, that makes perfect sense. Oh, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense, because obviously, we don't have any market for it, see, and there's only so many breweries around here, maybe Coors has already got all the carbon dioxide they need. Oh, so it's catch and release. Yeah. So then they say, okay, Mr. Governor, can we get a quote from you? Yes, you can. We love the state. We think everybody that works here is just so excited to be here. We're looking to all the talent and intellectual capacity that are growing. And well, why are you here? Well, I think when the history of carbon crisis is written, director capture's gotta be right there. Well, excuse me, Nancy, excuse me, Jared, do you have any staffers that have ever talked to you about this? Can't say about this if they have. Oh. Who else is for it? Well, the governor of Wyoming, for all the obvious reasons you could conjure up. And, you know, I was in a meeting that included, there was his meeting downtown here a couple of months ago, and we had a nice conversation. Well, the Department of Energy is quite interested in this, and with a straight face, she will actually say, we can take massive amounts of carbon pollution directly from the air and combat the climate crisis. Well, I used to work at the Department of Energy through the Renewable Energy Laboratory, and when they sit you down to tell you, okay, congratulations, you're working here. One thing we want you to understand here is that you may be in favor of renewable energy, which is why you're working in this lab, and you know a lot about that topic. But one thing you need to understand, we're all part of this Department of Energy family. We're all here to get along. So, in so many words, please don't go out there and tell anybody that you're against it. And it's fine for you to be for renewable energy, but you know, just stay in your lane. So that's what she's done. When she was offered the job, they basically said, you do know that when you have this job, you have to pro. Oh, yes, I understand. You have to be pro. Correct. Yes. Get behind all of this. So she's all of the above, because that's the Department of Energy. It's not the Department of some energy. It's the Department of Energy. So they are already getting the money out. Well, they're giving the money out to the oil and gas guys down in Texas and Louisiana to show their bipartisan nature. They go into the red states, you know, drop the federal money down right into the red states to show that, oh yeah, we're all in this thing together, and the skills that you have in the oil and gas industry, you could use those here for this carbon capture. So these are our two senators, good guys. I like them both. I worked for one of them. And on 98% of stuff I like, but I'm here talking about carbon capture, not everything else that they do. When it comes to carbon capture, if they heard this presentation, they would say, that's fine for you to do that as an advocate, but please don't ask me to ever communicate what you just said to any of my constituents. Because there's absolutely nothing in that. So the first rule of law in politics, never say anything negative about any industry, any constituency, because you don't want to have any enemies. So you have to be nice, regardless of how wacky it is. So here are the wackies is, in this case, Bill Gates. Hey, he's worth $100 billion. When he cares about wasting money, he's got so much money, he doesn't have to consider that. You know, you live in a 30,000 square foot house and have a yacht and all that. Your mind is in a very different place. And so you have this latitude to be able to say, yeah, well, we've got lots of money to spend on these things. There's the other guy is Senator Barrasso from Wyoming, and he's a real piece of work. And he's really pushing carbon capture. And this guy, you know, the good old guys from the Confederacy are there pushing for this because of the petrochemical complex in their states. On this one, I just
Mhm.
add, must I say more? I mean, yeah, must I say more? He's for it, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when your mind gets so far out there, and that you're believing in yourself and it just gets to be weird. Yeah, but this goes on the international level. The Conference of Parties, the International Panel on Climate Change, they were out there at the World Capital in the Middle East in Dubai. And who's their chair of the session? The head of something like the fifth largest oil company in the world, Abu Dhabi. So he's welcome to the climate conference. And there's 2,000 oil lobbyists. Everybody's like, we have to watch, wondering when the technical session's over, so that they could go up to the hotel because they've got great food up there. Okay, that's why we're there. Networking, say that you've been there, but what do they say about carbon capture? Oh, big time. And the COP28, the whole thing was, see, they did a white paper with 25 pages that they gave to all the delegates before, saying, here's what we're going to try to do. We want to, we don't think it's realistic to be talking about pulling back on oil and gas. What we think is realistic is for us to put emissions controls on that, including carbon dioxide, which is why we're here. It's all about carbon dioxide. Well, so they're all expected to say that.
Pardon the interruption. It's about 8:12, 8:13 or so, and we have to be out by 8:30.
Oh,
If you
I thought it was 9.
Yeah, no, we have to be out by, it's okay, but if maybe wrap things up and then allow some time for Q&A.
Well, okay, I'll wrap it because these things, these are the people who are against carbon capture. Start just on Morey Wolfson and MDCRES. You know this guy's Mike Nelson.
Yeah.
You know this guy, Andrew Levins. You know this guy out there. He basically said that it's easier to capture politicians than to capture. This is the head of the International Energy Agency. He says it's a farce, it's an illusion, and he told that to the COP28. My favorite are the taxpayers organization. Taxpayers are common sense. Read this last thing. What we have found is that the American taxpayers are being forced to put the bill for a flawed climate solution in the form of a tax credit that is subsidizing the very industries responsible for climate change. So we're doing double duty. These are guys, probably most of you would not have any reason to know these people, but these are icons in the carbon world. Joe Ron, Mark Jacobson, Bill McKibben. They all have very basic things to say about this is a fraud. Unfortunately, our friend Greta was suckered into flying to Switzerland 6 years ago and getting a picture taken in front of this garbage. I'm sure she regrets that crazy that she was out there. And she's a metaphor for so many people in the environmental movement. At first blush, they're all for it until they find out. I'm ending it here because there's been a lot of fraud. There's been almost $1 billion worth of oil company fraud. It's already happened. Where they took the money without meeting the requirements. And even though that was all brought to the attention of Congress, the Congress still overwhelmingly are in support of this thing because it's making that dollar return. In Colorado, we've got the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. These people are there to protect us from a lot of problems. Well, this is a map of the orphan oil wells. And they are not addressing this issue, but sure enough, they're changing their name. They just changed the name from the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission to the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. So this is all part of that greenwash. Like, oh no, we're not the oil and gas, we're not the carbon management. Well, they're not even paying attention to this, and now they're and they're redirecting their attention to something that's not going to cancel out. So this is where I come in with people from CRES and from many other environmental organizations to like make our views known. And there's a lot going on in state, down in Pueblo, there's a push for this stuff. And the energy office where I used to work is doing good study. And there's been legislation and we testify, we provide written material for the members of the legislature to read this, to understand it. They read all the stuff that I'm talking to you about. So, I haven't read it. Because they got that dollar sign sitting out there. Thank you. So these are my parting thoughts is that we, particularly people who have been working so hard on climate change, they really need to distinguish between the fiction and the truth. And the more that you understand the fiction makes you more wanting to make things go in the right direction. So now's the time. So thanks for letting me know. We're here for games. How are you? Okay, nice to see you. There. So we've got some time here for some questions. And
Yes.
you could give us the high sign when you want to
Sure.
stop. Okay, guys, thanks for bearing with me on this overbearing topic. But let's open this up for some statements, observations, questions. Whatever you got.
Yeah, I just wanna ask, so the plant in Brighton, they take the CO2 from the atmosphere to do a lift and they try and find somebody to take it, or
They
what
can,
are they doing exactly?
that's it's called capture and release. They just take it right out and, you know, but they kind of touch the whole thing on like sort of a research and development phase. So that the fact that they don't have a market for that carbon dioxide today should not be concerned. And you know, I understand their logic, but it's the fortune to the seekers. He's a billionaire, operating son of the owner of Seekers. And see, he's one of these billionaires that says, oh, I want to go to the yacht club and tell people what I'm doing to save the world. And so they could throw these tens of millions of dollars in operations. They know in full well that they're not going to pencil out, but they can kind of like polish their image.
I can find him many more ways to help.
Yeah, I like to say, you know, why people sell it to the guy. Yes. I recognize you. I forgot, where are you from or?
Well, I've been to the some of the press.
Oh, you've been to this press on us.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yes, I totally agree that, you know, the CCUS as a way to kind of justify drilling for more oil and gas, that's a bad foundation for the idea. But my thoughts are that, you know, even if we were to like switch every single gasoline powered car with an EV, you know, switch all the electricity generation from fossil fuels to wind and solar and right other non-sources, and switch all our heating with heat pumps, right, like electrify everything. What can we still do about emissions from places like cement production and steel production, right, which those processes do generate CO2? Is there a place, what we are ready?
Thank you, yeah. So that's often a reason for going with carbon capture, because these what they call hard to abate industries, cement, steel. They need a tremendous amount. Concrete and steel in the world could be, I don't know, 15% or something like that. Greenhouse gas emissions.
It's voracious.
It's what?
It's voracious.
It is voracious, yeah, and so I'm in favor of R&D when it's attached to that. And so, and I appreciate your saying, yeah, you're good with how pressing it is on the other areas. But in the case of steel, it's been very difficult for them to get it very, but the chances for concrete are a little higher, but even that is like a challenge, very challenging. But we wish them luck, and I would not want to prevent federal research and development money to go into those areas. Yeah, thank you.
What price of carbon do you think would actually get people to do something different?
Well, people love their cars and they love more houses. I like my electric space heater in the middle of the river. Not seeing it there. I like that. So, you know, there's an elasticity of demand, like when the price gets to be very, very high, when the price of gasoline gets to be $4 or $5, there's gonna be the low income people that might start to say, I don't think we're gonna go to trip in the mountains. But the millionaire, he's actually making money on that $5. So, I think the question is who pays? Like, if you're asking me as a taxpayer to pay, where's my willingness to pay? To be able to hold carbon capture. Well, when carbon capture itself is a parasitic power, and you have to build more power plants to even operate. It's like, I'm not gonna pay them any. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna.
Right, but I'm not asking what price justifies carbon capture. I'm asking at what price do you stop emitting carbon? At what price can we as humans stop doing it?
Good.
Because that's the problem, right? Really,
Yeah, I
that
agree.
we all like our convenience.
Yes,
We all wear
yes.
things that are made from carbon.
Everything.
We
haven't got there yet.
But the whole world is the way it is because we value money. And we do things that give us more money or we spend our money on. So that seems to be the solution is people do things that follow money. So like what price point of carbon do we actually do something different?
The market will find.
Okay, so let's,
So if you put a tax on carbon or what they call fee, many of you are probably familiar with Citizens Climate Lobby. They've been around for about 10 years and their whole thing. They don't like to get involved in politics. They would never like to hear the talk that I just gave that included politics, and they try to stay completely out of that. Okay, but they want fee, but they want fee, some people would call it tax. You put a tax on carbon, so that changes the behavior, so that instead of you paying $3 a tank, now you're paying $8. And they think that money, then North's not like that, but if they get a check in the mail, then they'll say, well, I know, neutral.
I mean, it's a tragedy, the common scenario.
Yes,
I don't know how you fix it other than making people pay to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been very active with Citizens Climate Lobby. It's a carbon fee and dividend. You put a tax on any oil, coal, and gas, anything that's coming out of that is metered, it's measured, and those people, one of those companies, they have to pay the Treasury Department a certain tax. Then the Treasury Department and writes a check to everybody in the country, regardless of age or income. They all get the money. And then they're told that they're harmless. The millionaire gets the check in the mail for like, $37.50. He laughs at it. He's
Right, it won't change, but if someone can remove carbon, get paid for it and put it to use and put it somewhere that's not oil, is that what's broken?
The only use for it, from a market standpoint, the only real use, I mean, broad scale backwards,
Yeah.
is oil. It's not like, oh, we're gonna produce more Coca-Colas or more Hamm's beer, because we.
Yeah, I mean, when you crack that, it goes up the atmosphere anyway, so
Yeah,
I think. I have an engineering firm, we build these facilities, we build oil and gas facilities, we build renewable facilities, we build all types of energy. And it's all because people want a return on investment.
I like that.
So that's the only way the world really changes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the price point that I'm hearing and I've seen from doing this is that. That the EPA on, you gotta capture 90% of your emissions from coal plants from by 2037.
Yeah.
If it goes through, and I think it should,
Yeah.
but it's gonna add about 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is probably double what people are paying for power.
That's crazy. They always got to do that.
Well, I mean, and let's get used to a warmer world. I don't know what to tell people, right?
No, I mean, what your conversation is getting into is that big topic of the climate crisis. And how are we gonna address this? And, the tax on carbon or the attempt to put a cap on carbon.
Yeah, we're past the point.
That's not gonna do it. What is gonna do it is, it's like, what we're doing in Colorado, we're gonna have 80% of our electric power in Colorado by the year 2030. It's gonna be earned to us from renewable energy. Okay. Now, the only reason that's happening is because of the return. It's profitable. It's economic. It's so, but that's only electric power. Then we've got cars. But when you look at
We
the
have this ozone attainment area, we're gonna pay for reformulated fuel this summer.
maybe up to 56.
Yeah, so like, I think the recognition that the environment is not a dumping zone, which has no cost. Is the challenge, that's what they think,
Yeah.
like, there's just no fee for me throwing my trash, right?
Yeah.
If I don't get caught,
Right.
Is there any other regulations, like other areas of the environment, like water, where there has been a cost put on it, it's actually changed people's behavior and changed what's happened, or is it only by regulation?
It's only interesting because it's what the economists call elasticity of demand. You increase the price on product, you're gonna find that the demand for that product is gonna go down.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm not willing to spend, like $3,000 on this laptop, I'm just not.
Right.
But if I'm a millionaire, I might like to look at it.
Right.
So it's elasticity of demand, because the low income people that are the ones that are paying unbelievable percentage of their income towards electric utilities,
I
gasoline.
mean, one would even say that third world country people, the poorest in the world are actually paying the most,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And, but they're not in America, so like, right, I mean,
Out of sight, out of mind.
yeah, I mean, let's be a little,
Or
that,
who even cares?
that's, so it's gonna interest us.
I didn't see anything in your presentation about the solidification of CO2.
Yeah,
And turning it into, calciferous, is that what it would be? Is that the
Yeah.
right word?
there was only one slide and I might have.
And then employing that in bricks or something. like that.
Construction material.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to be the villain here. We do kind of have to respect the Alliance Center's, time. We need to start, I'm giving you the.